from Kazina is Associate Professor Ahmed Adamu. He lectures at the Department of Economics at Nile University of Nigeria here in Abuja. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Prof, welcome to the program also. Prof Ahmed, are you as surprised as some of us here when Professor Owaleke mentioned that almost 6 billion was budgeted as capital project in the list of things to be done by the National Assembly to build car parks and another 4 billion for recreation facility?
Yes, I am shocked and surprised to see that there are no changes in the way we do our budgets in this one, because this is the first budget we are going to have after the removal of subsidy and after the devaluation of the currency. And there is no difference. This is the same as the previous budget for me, because there is no way you can have a new results without new thinking and new way of doing things. And at a time of difficulty and tough times like this, if we call this budget a renewed hope, that this hope should come from sacrifice. If there are no sacrifice, there is no hope. And we have not seen any kind of sacrifice in this budget. What we see is a continuation of doing things as usual. So we have not seen cut in the size and the cost of government. What we are seeing is even more aggrandizement and more budget for recurrent spending. So we have not seen increase in the capital spending. This is the time of sacrifice, looking at the difficulty of life. So one of the things I was expecting from this budget is they should not try to do many things at once. You know, this is the time of prioritization, like the Prof said. We have to prioritize what are the most important things. We only do those important things, and those things that are not important, we don't even put them in the budget. We always have the possibility of doing the supplementary budget. So if we have increased revenue, we can send in more budget. I mean, in the future, additional budget. But when you look at the recurrent expenditure, which is higher than the capital, with this recurrent expenditure eventually will be the ones that will be implemented, and the capital expenditure will continuously be recycled. If you look at the recurrent expenditure, is higher than the capital spending. Recurrent expenditure is 37%, and the capital expenditure is 30% of the expenditure. When I look at the budget, I looked at the debt, and I saw a debt of around 85 trillion. Pardon me, 8.5 trillion. 8.5 trillion naira as a debt. And I was thinking that, okay, we've removed the subsidy, we've devalued the naira. So we should reduce the debt that we collect as a country, because any budget that has higher debt, for me, is not a healthy budget. The budget deficit is not bad, but in Nigeria, we have unhealthy budget deficit. We have a budget deficit of, in this budget, around 9 trillion.
Yes, 9.
And if you look at the performance of these budgets, we do more in debt servicing or in borrowing debt more than we budgeted than we do with revenue and expenditure. If you look at the recent budget performance, revenue is less than 70% performance. Expenditure is also less than 70% performance. And it's only in the debt that we are doing more than 100%. You understand? Like, I was looking at the 2022 budget, and I saw that the debt performance was 131%. So this is the area where we are not supposed to perform well and perform better in revenue and expenditure. So for me, I was surprised to see a lot of personnel expenditure serving these politicians. So there is no sacrifice in this budget.
All right. Yes. Professor Adamu, let's have your take. This appropriation being signed into law, I mean, the supplementary budget, you can see it also covers issues around conditional cash transfers. And coincidentally, today, President Tinubu, suspended Halima Shehu, who was superintending that office. What is your take? Is there any contradiction? And you have had Professor Owaleke in the studio saying there were issues, of course, when the supplementary bill was submitted to the National Assembly. The issue of the yard, the issue of renovating the vice presidents and the president's houses in Lagos and all that?
Well, for me, there could be two possible justifications for this supplementary budget. One is because this is a new administration and they want to have their own budget. The budget that suits their own focus and their vision, because the 2023 budget was done by the previous administration. So they want to bring their own things, and then there is a way they want administration to be set, and this is the beginning. The beginning determines what's going to happen in the future. So they want to make it right in the beginning. That's why they have their own budget. And then number two is because of the major decisions taken by this administration. One is the removal of subsidy, and then the devaluation of the currency. These are things that will have changed the entire economic landscape of the country, which have changed the way of lives, and then the budget also have to reflect that. So the budget will also have to focus on making life easier for people, especially to cushion the effects of the removal of subsidy. And so the focus will be on that agency for social investment, social services by the government, to provide incentives for people as a payback for taking away the subsidy they've been enjoying for years. So the decision by the president to suspend the managers of these funds is his personal decision, and of course, investigation must have been underway. We should not be also quick in making conclusion until the outcome of the report.
All right, thank you. Professor Ahmed, tomorrow, expectedly, the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, whose ministry, handled some of these conditional transfers and all that, is expected to be at the EFCC. The media is awash with that story. But going back a few days ago, some people started calling on the federal government to stop a kind of media trial. But others believe that the approach by the incumbent administration is also a sign of transparency. What is your take on that?
Well, you see, in managing people's trusts, especially at this trying time, it's a good decision that we have to investigate how these funds are managed, because we have the money for the poor people, but how it's being managed has to be scrutinized. And if people are found wanting, like I said, we have to publicize it, and people have to know, so that it serves as deterrent for others that are coming on board. So we are seeing two decisive decisions, one by the EFCC inviting how the previous funds were managed, and the current one also under investigation. So for me, this is a time when the poor people have to feel the benefit of the government or the presence of the government. And that can only happen if there's a proper management of the funds. So for me, I would say, let's allow the investigation to proceed.
All right, thank you. We will allow the investigation to proceed. Yeah, we're with you, Prof. Go on.
Yes, what surprised me was that when I look at the budget, I looked at the debt, and I saw a debt of around 85 trillion. Pardon me, 8.5 trillion naira as a debt. And I was thinking that, okay, we've removed the subsidy, we've devalued the naira. So we should reduce the debt that we collect as a country, because any budget that has higher debt, for me, is not a healthy budget. The budget deficit is not bad, but in Nigeria, we have unhealthy budget deficit. We have a budget deficit of, in this budget, around 9 trillion.
Yes, 9.
And if you look at the performance of these budgets, we do more in debt servicing or in borrowing debt more than we budgeted than we do with revenue and expenditure. If you look at the recent budget performance, revenue is less than 70% performance. Expenditure is also less than 70% performance. And it's only in the debt that we are doing more than 100%. You understand? Like, I was looking at the 2022 budget, and I saw that the debt performance was 131%. So this is the area where we are not supposed to perform well and perform better in revenue and expenditure. So for me, I was surprised to see a lot of personnel expenditure serving these politicians. So there is no sacrifice in this budget.
You know, Tinubu rushed from Lagos yesterday. On arrival, within 30 minutes, you know, the Speaker, the Senate President, all the presiding officers were in the villa. Here is Prof saying it's like Tinubu did not put his second glass, you know, to scrutinize this document. Can we just say that they are signing the budget as a ritual to beat the deadline, January to December, and that is all? They don't really care about the specifics and how to actualize them.
Actually, this is just a ceremony. Signing the budget is ceremonial. The work has been done by the expert, by the Ministry of Budget, the relevant officials. When they have these parameters, they set the whole budget on, because the life of the budget depends on those assumptions, those expectations that the Prof has been explaining. One of the key parameters is the oil production. So we're not doing less than 1.5 million barrels a day. And now this budget is saying that we're going to go beyond that. We're going to go 1.7, close to 1.8 billion barrels per day. 1.78 million barrels per day. Well, I think this is a very good anticipation, but what are we doing inside the budget to help increase the oil production to that stage? So having the assumption is one thing, but setting the economy to achieve those assumptions is different. When you have inflation around 28% inflation, and then you are setting the assumption of this budget, inflation is going to be 21%. So you're cutting down inflation by 7%. Then we have to look at the budget and see what are you going to do to cut down the inflation by 7%. Like Prof said, in the same budget, you are assuming that the dollar is going to be more expensive than it was initially proposed. And if dollar becomes expensive, then it is not consistent with your assumption that you are going to reduce the inflation by 7%. And the expectation that the GDP growth is going to be around 4% is also not realistic. At a time of increasing poverty, unemployment, and inflation, employers will not be incentivized to create more businesses. So we should anticipate low economic productivity in the economy is likely to reduce. So this expectation is not also realistic. So for me, we have to set our budget based on reality, our capacity to raise revenue. One of the areas that also captured my attention was the area of agriculture. The president has emphasized about the agriculture. But when you look at the budget, agriculture received 362 billion naira. So this is not consistent with also the ambition of the president to rely on agriculture as the base of the economy. If you look at the critical sectors like education, like healthcare, agriculture, and power put together, they are not even up to half of our debt. So we have a debt around 8.5 trillion. And all these critical sectors, we are not spending up to that. So for me, education is receiving around 1.4 trillion, and then health 1.2, agri around 360, so power and 344. He also talked about power. Power for me, 344 billion is too small for power. So you see, these are areas where we have to cut spending from the personnel, from politicians, National Assembly, the presidency. If you scrutinize the funds allocated to presidency, you'll be shocked, you'll be surprised. A lot of people are looking at National Assembly, but I want people to go to the budget office website and download this budget and look at what the office of the president is going to spend. Look at the office of chief of staff, around 21 billion. And all these offices. So you see, when people, power sector, agriculture, health sector, these are areas where we need to prioritize and give more allocation to. These are areas where you can see that, yes, those parameters are likely to improve. So for me, there is no sacrifice in this budget. This is a business as usual budget.
All right, thank you, Professor Ahmed. Professor Ahmed, when you look at the budget, defense alone is going to guzzle 1.308 trillion naira. And it's like over the years, defense is just guzzling money. Is this the way to go? or these monies should actually be channeled to areas where you can address issues that bring about insecurity?
Yes, I think we are a country where we look at the effects. We try to cut down the branches of the tree. We're not looking at the root cause of it. How many times we've been budgeting for security, but we have not seen the result that we are looking for. So you say you talk about 3.25 trillion for defense and security. And if you look at the infrastructure, around 1.32 trillion. So when you build infrastructure, that's when you enable the economy for job creation, for people to get jobs. So for me, it's spending more on infrastructure and social development is another way of addressing insecurity. So spending more on direct security structure of the country will not yield the same result, because what eventually you hear as reports coming after the budget is a lot of allegations on corruption, mismanagement, the managers of the funds are funding the funds and funds not reaching the right people at the grassroots, especially the soldiers on the front line, the police. If you look at the recent cases of some of the police banned from the service for collecting bribe from a foreigner, that would tell you that what happens to the funds that we've been allocating for these years on security. So for me, instead of budgeting more on security, we should budget more on things that will enable the economy to prosper so people get more jobs.
Associate Prof, maybe we should round up with a call on how to make implementation possible, because it's now a law. So how do they get it right? This should be in less than 1 minute, please.
Well, for the implementation, it comes down to parameters. The parameters of the budget determines its performance. So we look at the currency you use, which is the dollar for those purchases and for importation. For me, the entire performance of this budget depends on our productivity as a country. The production we have, that will also tells whether we're going to have bigger deficit or higher level of budget performance. So one of the key areas that we look forward to as a hub, this budget is the refineries. If the refineries will come on board, how much of the refined petroleum we import will reduce. And if we reduce the importation, the demand for dollar will reduce. And we're going to have more dollar in our reserves. And that will also enable us to implement those dollar-denominated expenditure. So that's going to increase the budget performance. So for me, the attention should focus more on prioritizing what will lead to increased local production so that we reduce our importation and then increase the value of Naira.
Professor Ahmed, we thank you very much for joining the program and for your informed perspective. We hope to have you again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right. And viewers, that's a wrap on today's package. We sincerely hope you found the conversation engaging and informative. And be sure to join Daily Politics live, airing every weekday, and our special package on Friday, during which we open our telephone line for you to comment on national issues. Once again, we thank you for watching. Bye-bye for now. I'm Hamza Idris.